What's up, everyone? Doublemint here. Back again, had some time away, but once more I am back in front of the camera, back on the keyboard, and I have seen a handful of movies over the past month. I wanted to quickly talk about them before I get started with like a year ends list. I suppose I'll get started with the newest movie that I saw, which is Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. And I don't have any notes really for this one. I saw this with like the family and, I had a good time doing that. But what I'll say is it was immaculately done, very handsome production. Was it a excruciatingly long 132 minutes? It was. While I have enjoyed all of the old century language in the past Robert Eggers movies, I feel like this movie had so much talking only for a character to kind of say very clearly what is going on in the situation. And of course, this is like the story of Dracula, so it is something that we have seen before. I mean, I have not seen any previous Nosferatu movie, but I do know the story of Dracula. Even at the times it felt a little convoluted or boring, I just kind of reminded myself like this is where we are in the story, and I started to enjoy it again. That being said, I thought all the performances were pretty good, especially Lily Rose Depp, who I always think is exceptional in everything she stars in, but on here, I mean, her performance is just so physical, and I think it's going to grant her a bunch of more performances in the near future. Also, Bill Skarsgård is unrecognizable. Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Nicholas Hoult, Willem Dafoe, they're all good. I don't think any one of those performers had to be in those selective roles, but they are always a decent turn. Overall, I'd give Nosferatu a 7.3. I'll talk about All We Imagine as Light. This movie won Grand Prix at the Cannes Film Festival this past year, and it is a movie set in Mumbai, and it focuses on a nurse who is a single woman and also her roommate who is like in the middle of this fling of sorts. And really, it's just a meditation on their lives. Very loose type of fiction that we get here. In the beginning of the movie, I was thinking of the director, I believe his name is Kalikala, who, his last movie, I Walk on Water. It's very good. All of his movies are great, but it kind of had that very just atmospheric vibe to it, almost like a doc in sorts. But that being said, while the performances are good in this movie and there are a lot of interesting things that I've thought about, it was a little bit patience testing, and I wasn't really sure where this was going. The end of this movie, it kind of just abandons its setting entirely. I just don't know if it really all quite worked for me, and they do wrap everything up in a pretty bow from what I remember, but I don't know, I just kind of walked away not fully committing to this movie. I thought it was very well done, and maybe in the future another watch will solidify my feelings toward it, but I don't know. For now, I would give this one like a 7.4. Real fast, I want to talk about The Line, directed by Ethan Berger. And this one has a really good cast of like Alex Wolff, Halle Bailey, also Angus Cloud, and that other boy from Euphoria, the very eccentric one, is on here too. And it is a movie set in a fraternity. Alex Wolff plays this sophomore who is kind of like bringing in new freshmen to this fraternity, and he's told not to haze them, and he is cautious over it because he is now the leader, but everybody around him wants to haze these freshmen, and this culminates into a very toxic environment. And this movie had a lot of interesting things going on. I really enjoyed Halle Bailey as this like alt-girl lesbian that has this little relationship with Alex Wolff's character, and it feels a little forced, but it just felt like a authentic idea for a modern college movie. And I think what's unfortunate about this whole movie is that it just goes somewhere so predictable. It reminded me a lot of that fraternity movie Goat with Nick Jonas a couple years ago, which was pretty good. And overall, like The Line, it's good too. Did walk away a little unfazed by what ended up happening on this movie. Still, if you're in the mood for something based in college and with a vibrant new young cast, you could do worse. I would give The Line like a 6.7. We also have Nickelbys by Ramel Ross. Heard lots of good things about this movie from friends and other respectable outlets. Premiered at New York Film Festival, Toronto International Film Festival, Telluride. Lots of Oscar prospects are on this movie, and you know, from afar, it did look like some Oscar bait to me, which never really what I'm interested in, but I was intrigued by the premise of a first-person perspective, especially being such a fan of first-person video games. I wondered if this movie was going to have any inspiration on a front like that. I'm really happy to say that like this movie is creatively unbound, and the idea of a first-person perspective, it's not a gimmick, and it is so beautifully executed. This is the director's second movie. I've not seen his first, but from what I could tell of the first, it seems quite experimental. And you know, this movie being in the hands of a photographer makes so much sense because there is so much attention to like sounds and images here, perspective shifts, and the ambient soundscapes. It almost reminds me of like something Terrence Malick would tackle. Of course, this movie is set in a racially charged remedial school called Nickel Academy. It's more of like a juvie for our main character, Elwood. And it also doubles with a present-day time shift as the movie goes on. And I imagine this is a very complimentary adaptation to the novel by Colson Whitehead. I've not read, but of course he is a prolific novelist. And yeah, this movie just has a lot of talent. I totally understand the hype. Personally, a little melodramatic. I don't know. You know, this movie, it really shoots for the stars towards the end. It really shoots for your heartstrings, with this whole unique perspective being like the main showcase of this movie. I don't know if I emotionally connected to everything that happened. It's a lot like the movie The Zone of Interest from last year. Yet, like that one, I understand that some people are going to watch this movie and not feel as emotionally attached as others are. So overall, you know, I'd give this movie like an 8.0. It's good. Recommend seeing it, especially in theaters. Next, let's talk about Emilia Perez. This won a jury prize at Cannes Film Festival, as well as a Best Actress trophy, split amongst the three main performers. We have Carla Sofia Garzon, Zoe Saldana, and Selena Gomez. Really interesting premise in this movie. So interesting. When hearing about it, I thought, what? Basically centers on a drug lord who transitions into a woman to become a different person, this politically centered activist in ways. And yeah, there's a lot more to this. This drug lord misses their children from the past life and wants to be closer to them again. It's bizarre. I don't know if it's appropriate to say that I thought of a movie like Mrs. Doubtfire at times when watching this. And it's also a musical. This is all being held together by director Jacques Saucliard, French filmmaker that is making a movie all in Spanish. A lot of it is also set in Mexico. And it's just very weird. That being said, I didn't dislike this movie, really. I was engaged the whole time. I couldn't really look away from it. Liked how much world building this movie had from the very beginning. I think audiences are going to watch this movie and feel a little jaded just of the culture shock that we're given here. Of course, this movie is being catered heavily to American audiences. It is Oscar heavyweight, and just its stance on identity, I felt it to be a little different than a lot of the identity-centered films that we get in America. But there is a lot of talent here. This movie is pretty well done in some ways. I do think the performances are good. You know, a lot of the attention's on Carla Sofia Garzon, who is great, but Zoe Saldana, probably like the best I've seen her. And Selena Gomez, I always enjoy her, but I know there is some flack on how she pronunciates a lot of her Spanish. I don't really fault that on her. I kind of fault that on the filmmakers on this movie. But yeah, altogether, it's interesting. I'm kind of shocked that it is such an award heavyweight, but it is pretty bold for what it is. I would give this movie like a 6.6. We also have Bird, the new movie by Andrea Arnold. It played in competition at Cannes this past year. Was very excited to watch this. Overall, I really enjoyed this. Probably out of everything on this list, this is the best movie in my opinion. Absolutely love the work of Andrea Arnold. Everything with her stamp on it. I happen to love it. This one might not rank all too high amongst the rest of her material, but still, very cool coming of age movie. This sense of perspective that she nails every time with her main characters that really makes you feel like you are in her headspace. And there's like a scene early on in this movie where Barry Keoghan and the main girl in this movie kind of ride into town, and just the way the map opens up on this movie and we see all these different shops and just the culture around our main character, it is so immersive. As well as the pacing here, it's all pretty great. All of Andrea's movies are very much set in like reality, but this is maybe the first I've seen from her that had such a sense of surrealism going on. And how was it? It definitely kind of just peeks its way in the 11th hour of this movie. I'm glad that it's there. It definitely gives this movie a little more innocence. I think my only real kind of gripes on this movie is the supporting cast. I don't really think was as strong as our main character. We have Franz Rogowski and Barry Keoghan on here. And I just felt like they were very typical picks for characters like these. They weren't bad by any means, but with our newcomer actress just really holding this movie on her shoulders and doing so well, I couldn't help but to see them kind of pale in comparison. I do recommend this one. It has been a little while since I've seen it, but remember walking away very satisfied by this. I would give this like an 8.3. Quickly want to talk about this movie called Meanwhile on Earth by a filmmaker named Jeremy Clapin. This is his live action debut. His last movie was called I Lost My Body, I want to say. Yeah, it was an animated movie. I saw it on Netflix when it came out. It has this premise about a young lady whose brother is lost in space. She starts receiving these messages and communication by what could be her brother or somebody that is near the brother, and giving her a bunch of tasks to do, namely sacrificing 3 people to get her brother back. It's a very interesting premise, and it is so small scale. Reminded me of like the movies by Zal Batmaji and Britt Marling, specifically Another Earth. So if you are a fan of like indie sci-fi, I highly recommend checking this movie out. It's also pretty scary. There are little bits that play on like body horror. It also has this ominous and atmospheric vibe. There are a lot of shots of space, and it really plays to the tone here. It's a movie about loss and kind of the importance of life while you have it. And there is some animation that pops up on here as well. There's a lot packed in to the 89 minutes of this movie, and I kind of wish it was a little longer. Some of the choices that this main character makes have no real repercussions from it, and I don't know, there might not be enough closure here to really stick the landing, but still there is a lot of imagination and themes at play here. I just wish it was a little more consistent. I would give this movie like a 6.8. We also have Memoirs of a Snail. It's a new movie by Adam Elliott, which his last movie, Mary and Max, is almost a decade old, and I remember seeing that movie on streaming through Netflix back when Netflix streaming was like first kind of coming about. And like that movie, this is another very mature and creatively unbound movie. It is beautifully animated in stop motion, cartoony when it needs to be, and then also just very brooding and peculiar when it has to be as well. I mean, this movie is full of character from the very beginning. I love seeing like packs of cigarettes with like very cylinder-like clay stogies. You could just tell it is so personal in its themes on self-loathing and being a recluse. That being said, while there is a lot of just eye-popping imagery here, It is a bit much to go through. I found it almost like trudging through mud. This is a very sad movie, and there are some bittersweet moments and laughs to be had, but only for it to be bogged down once more. And I do think this ends in a profound way, but overall, it was a bit much. I recommend it, but I also say check this movie out a little bit before you walk into it, because it could either ruin your day or open your mind in a good way. And I would give this one like a 7.3. And I'm going to leave it at that. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to have a year-end video coming very soon, so stay tuned for that. Have a lot to be excited about. We got Sundance coming up, and we got a lot of interesting movies that are going to be coming out. Super pumped for that, so stay tuned, and thank you for watching once more.